Hello and welcome to another episode of Startup with Poland, where we continue our deep dive into Poland's increasingly buzzing startup scene. My name is Tessa McIver and I am your host, introducing you to startup founders and a plethora of top ecosystem players. Today, we will be speaking to Bogusława Cimoszko-Skowroński, herself an innovator, investor and startup ecosystem builder. In 2015, Bogy, an MIT alumna, set up the MIT Enterprise Forum Poland Accelerator program, which later evolved into the CEE Accelerator. To date, the program has accelerated almost 300 startups and builds bonds between the startup and corporate worlds. Bogy, so please first tell me what inspired you to actually create an infrastructure for startups to develop in Poland and then the CEE region?
So actually, I was going to do it already in 2007, 8 years earlier, but Poland was not ready for it then. So when in 2015, Paweł Bochniarz and Chris Gawrysiak approached me, I was just super enthusiastic. You know, I lived in Boston for over 16 years, and I've seen what it means to be part of an ecosystem, a tech ecosystem. MIT has a terrific tech ecosystem. Approximately 1,000 startups are launched every single year. And I think, you know, if you count the GDP of all the alums, it probably would be bigger than many European countries. So I saw it firsthand, the power of an ecosystem, and Poland did not have anything like that. You know, it was just like, you know, friends and friends of friends talking to each other, but it wasn't a true community. So three of us decided to approach MIT and convince them actually that, you know, we should do something in Poland, and they believed us. So this was the first part. But then we had to actually raise the capital and convince corporate partners to fund it. And we got first two corporate partners. That was enough to basically have two people, dedicating themselves and launching the whole thing. So yes, the beginnings were very modest, but we excelled every single edition. We improved things. We're paying so much attention to how things should be done. The reception was very enthusiastic. So we got more corporate partners, we got great mentors to participate in the ecosystem. We invited many investors, institutes, universities, and I think other people noticed what we were doing and started basically launching similar initiatives. So yes, the beginning was modest, but extremely enthusiastic, and we were super committed.
Well, no, that's, you know, fantastic to hear, and well done for being one of the, you know, pioneers on the Polish startup ecosystem, world. But what changes have you seen in the last few years? So, you know, obviously you're saying that back in 2007, there was a non-existent scene. 2015, 2016, you know, Poland was ready and you were able to make these first steps. But in the last years, you know, what's really developed in Poland and CEE?
I think people started to appreciate the power of community, because why do you need an ecosystem? You know, an ecosystem is required because you are able to shorten the time to get the answers, right? And when you are like Poland, if you're starting from basically a zero level, like, you know, we didn't have tech startups, you know, they started, very individualistic, just few people were doing it. You need to learn a lot, and you need to learn fast, and you need to get the answers fast, because, you know, in the meantime, all the other countries are building their companies and they're learning much, much faster. So we need to do a lot of catch up. So first of all, the communities got launched, like ours, right? And there's like more accelerators, and people understand why we need to bring everybody together, because the getting answers is so much more efficient, and the scale is so important. Secondly, I think the founders got the confidence to actually go outside of Poland. You know, when we were starting, I mean, everybody was just focused on the Polish market, and people like Stefan Batory, you know, from Bogy, I mean, he was unique. When I first met him in 2012, or so, you know, this was like amazing that the guy dared to do something in Europe, not to say States, right? So, but see, this is like we are very ambitious in Poland. So one person does it and the rest wants to follow. Like, if he can do it, I can do it. So I knew that this power of people actually going to the States, establishing their companies, others will just say, hey, I can do it too. And this is what, draws the numbers. And in the numbers, we can, when we have the numbers, some of us will be super successful. And that is a repeated cycle, right? That, the next been more successful.
So, Bogy, you mentioned that one of the key drivers that managed to get you started with the MIT Enterprise Forum initiative was the fact that you got 2 corporate partners. And I really want to understand, why do you think it's important for startups and corporates to cooperate? And, what actually can corporates learn from the agility of startups? Tell us a bit more about that relationship.
I think we're still at the very beginning stage in Poland and actually in Central and Eastern Europe of corporates really appreciating the value of startups. Many corporates, when we talk to them, they said, but listen, I'm a billion-dollar business. Why would I even care to talk to someone who is, selling for $5,000 a month? I don't really care. It has absolutely, it's not worth my time. So it was really hard to make people realize, that it's important to them. And I talked to some of the corporates abroad, and I tried to understand, why are they participating, right? And I was just blown away by one of the answers I've heard. One guy said, listen, I participate because I am completely paranoid about our business being disrupted. Every single business will be disrupted because we're in the area of digitalization. So, and he said, what I'm really afraid of is black swan events, because these are the things that I cannot predict. So if I think that because I'm big, I'm powerful, I'll survive, this is completely, for sure I'll disappear. So he's paranoid about seeing things that he cannot predict. And I said, what kind of startups do you then invite if you cannot predict? How do you do it? He said, I invite the ones that I really want, I want to work with, but I also want to observe the scene. I want to be aware of what's going on, because I need to always transpose the things that are out there and think, can they have an impact on me? ChatGPT, what impact is, it will have a huge impact, right? But do we have enough imagination to understand what are these young people thinking and in which direction this is developing? And I think the best way to really observe it, to get the inspiration, is to work with these startups, to get their thinking, because a lot of times they seem disorganized, or their ideas seem not really well prepared, but it doesn't matter. These guys are committed, and some of them will really win.
Yeah, I suppose, it ties in with the theme of, that being fast is the new big, that, actually being big is not always the winning element in today's world, but the speed.
Corporations has been really reduced, right? It used to be that, once you are big, you exist forever. And I think the average lifetime right now is 20 years or so. And the companies just disappear from the market, even the biggest ones.
Bogy, tell us a little bit more about the secret sauce of MIT and what you think that we in Poland and the CEE region, can learn from MIT's, way of creating startups and actually, thinking about innovation.
Yes, it's actually hard because, MIT is a learning institution, and it's difficult to compare. We don't have anything like it in Poland. So it is a community, it's quite special, and, everybody, it has its own DNA. I remember I was quite surprised when I got to the institute. When I applied, I didn't know what MIT was. And I think if I knew, I probably wouldn't have applied, right? I always tell the story. But once I got in and I actually visited it, I was just blown away by the individualism of the students, and that this individualism was cherished. And, people made fun of those who work hard in Poland. The big thing was, hey, let's party. And like, if we're so talented, we don't need to study, right? This was kind of the theme. And it was just 180 degrees different at MIT. Everybody was a nerd, I mean, people they just loved working on their problems. So the community is kind of self-made because it's self-selected. I mean, the people that fit the culture are selected to be part of it. But I think, when you are there, you see the power of it because you just have all this individualism, all this passion, all this energy, and it's just contagious, Even if you are less ambitious, you kind of get it under your skin. So I think, that is one strength. The second big strength is focus on practicality. So, MIT is not a place where you'll speak about philosophical ideas, but rather take something and apply it, do something with it, engineering approach. And very practice oriented, again, not, learning theory, engineering theory, but actually building a bridge, And I think that's why there are so many startups, because very early on, students are encouraged to actually do stuff and do it in groups. And this cross-departmental learning, there is a lot of intermingling, so it doesn't matter that you're part of one department. You take courses from the whole institute, whatever interests you. So I think this kind of diversification, focus on passion, and selecting people who really care, who want to excel and learn. I think this is a special mix, right?
Yeah.
And I think in our community, I think we try to pay attention, in a similar way, right? At MIT, in our accelerator, we try to cherish these things. So hopefully some of it can get transposed, right? We get glimpses of it here as well.
No, definitely. Let's very much hope so. I think it's always worth looking at the best and learning something, even if we somehow then formulate it, slightly differently, but definitely, taking a lesson. I mean, Bogy, I think, we can say that right now the Polish startup ecosystem is thriving and is growing and is becoming more and more, powerful and visible globally. But, what do you think specifically Poland needs to focus on, or whether it's founders, this whole ecosystem, investors, acceleration programs, what do we need to focus on to actually, go to the next level, in your opinion?
We need a lot more education among the corporates, because we still see some resistance, or I would say indifference, that many corporates, and they just say, okay, it's not my problem yet, right? So I think this type of approach, hey, I need to be paranoid, like the company I was describing from Switzerland, I mean, these guys are truly paranoid because they're global thinkers. They see what's going on. So I hope that our corporate managers, C-levels, will be more paranoid. Secondly, I think we need a closer work between the government and the ecosystem players, because I think there are a lot of regulatory things, ecosystem things that could be improved. And I'm not sure, the governmental players should pay a lot more attention to people who are actually doing it, right? Because we are have the first-hand knowledge. So I hope, this part improves. Thirdly, I would love to see the mature founders who already achieved a lot be more involved in ecosystem of ours and other players, because I think it's so important to bring this knowledge back. I see it a lot, like, UiPath, for example, who, Romanian company was extremely successful. I mean, they're creating so many initiatives around, building a stronger ecosystem. Same thing Estonians, right? I mean, they were able to really create and build a very successful because of Skype and what these guys came back and started investing. We don't have that culture yet, and that's why we did MIT, because I wanted to give back. I mean, it gives me enormous pleasure to give back and to see the young people, thriving. So I hope we have more of the successful ones really, working with us and figuring out how can they best apply their skills and their experience. Yeah.
Okay, well, those three great bullets. We want the corporates to not sleep so soundly at night and, have their eye on the ball. We want more cooperation and good cooperation between governments and business and the ecosystem, and giving back to the community. I think, fantastic messages. I think I really agree with you that all these three, could really be improved. And let's hope they will be. And, that in some years from now, we will be discussing how to improve even different things, because those will be in place. Bogy, it's been an absolute pleasure speaking with you. Thank you so much for joining us today, and well done with all the fantastic work you've done to towards the startup ecosystem in Poland.
Pleasure to be here, Tessa, and look forward to the next one in a few years so we can look back.
Exactly. So Bogy, thank you once again. It's been an absolute pleasure talking with you. And to our audience, thank you for joining us, and we look forward to seeing you next time.